Joy Conversation. So jump in. We're looking for you to give us a high five, a wave, a heart. Let us know that you are in the conversation. Jump in. Yes. Come on in. Let us know that you are here. We're going to get us started with our watch party. Hello, Kia. Welcome. Welcome to the conversation. Yes. Jump in. Let us know you are here. We'll get our watch party started. Yes. Hello, Ivania. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are excited about day 23. And this lady right here, I cannot wait for you to hear the wisdom and the heart and the passion that she has to share with us tonight. Hello, Cheryl. Yes, Lisa, welcome. Awesome. People are logging in. Watch party is set. Give us a wave. Hello, Nakisha. Yes, thank you for that heart. I love it. Alicia, welcome. Give us a wave. Let us know that you are in the place. Yes, Gina, hello. Gina says, hello, Dr. Scott.
Hello.
Yes, Miko, hello. Awesome. As people are logging in, again, welcome to day 23 of our Joy Conversation. And tonight, I'm excited that I have Dr. Tina Scott with us. She is a psychotherapist. She is a life coach. She has her own private practice. And tonight, I love her brand, and she is known as America's Breakthrough Doctor. I know in this season,
Yes.
I could use a breakthrough. I don't know about you,
Me too.
but I could use a breakthrough. Can I
Yes.
get a comment in the comment section, please? I could use a breakthrough.
Yes.
I am excited about being able to have this conversation. Yes, Cheryl said yes. That's right. I know that's right. This conversation, being able to talk about how joy can become a part of our entire wellness. I appreciate our conversation we kind of had offline in recognizing where people might be in this season and time, recognizing how when we are forced to sit still and be still with ourselves, how that stillness can be scary for some. It can be a challenge for some. We often might be filling our days and our hours and our minutes with busyness to avoid having to be with ourselves. But ourselves, we are the only person we can never escape from. And being able to have a conversation with you tonight around using joy as a tool in the process of accessing wellness and peace, and getting grounded. So I'd love to hear a little bit about you as well as your perspective on joy in a wellness journey.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I'm Dr. Tina Scott. I have my own private practice here on City Line Avenue, where I deal with a lot of people that feel like they're lacking joy. I help people break down a lot of barriers that hinders them from just being their best self. I work with organizations that are dealing with issues as far as getting their teams to work better, dealing with stress management, and I work with a lot of our athletes on the field, just helping them to get their minds right. So on a day-to-day basis, I help people just get their mental wellness straight and get back into this thing called life, because so many of us give up and we lose hope, we lose joy, we lose a lot of things, and oftentimes we don't figure that out until we hit rock bottom.
Wow. Yes, and it's so I appreciate how I know as I coach individuals and speak
Hmm.
with individuals how a place of being stuck becomes
Hmm.
a place of giving up.
Yeah.
And yesterday, in talking with Courtney, our speaker, we really stressed around emotional becoming clear that our emotions don't always tell us the truth.
Mm.
And because we are emotionally going through something doesn't mean that we need to put a period there and
Yes.
that's the end of the story.
Yes. Yes.
And so, for you, Dr. Tina, how does joy play a role in helping someone get to a place of really connecting with mental wellness, with connecting with purpose, with moving past that give up space?
Yeah. When you asked me this, and when I talked to you, and when I realized the topic for the evening, I said first we need to define what joy is, right? So many of us have definitions for words, and we run away with this meaning, and then we apply it to our lives, and it doesn't even measure up.
Wow.
So I said, let me think about what joy means to me. And then I visualized all my clients coming into my office, what joy meant to them. And I realized there was like a confusion between joy and happiness, right? So often we mix the terms up that we think that we don't have joy because we're not happy. And we're often putting our happiness in like materialistic things
Mhm.
and based off of our own expectation. If I get this new car, I'm going to be happy. And then we get the new car, and after 3 weeks, we looking at that car like it's old news. And now the Bible talks about how the eye is never satisfied. Then we're trying to chase something else. And we're often in this race of the pursuit of happiness versus actually living it. And then when I looked at the two words, I was like, what is what is joy? And then I thought about just like strictly gratitude, right? Like being grateful. And then I said, what makes me grateful? And then I started thinking about when I'm resting at his feet, right? And so often we take something, we try to make things so deep and so complicated, right? It's like literally resting at his feet and knowing that he's in control of every situation and truly praising him in the midst of everything, right?
Mhm.
And when I think about this pandemic that we're in, I was trying to figure out like why wasn't I freaking out? I'm like, I turn on the news, I see Donald Trump and I see different things. I'm like, why am I not freaking out? Why am I having a sense of peace? And it's because I know God's going to do what he says he's going to do. And I'm just resting in his word. So for me, truly understanding those terms is important because a lot of times we don't understand the power of the meaning of the words that we give them. And I would challenge anybody to really think about, am I mixing up joy and happiness? Because if we are, then we'll never be satisfied because what we're doing is we're running off our feelings.
Yes.
And if we're running off our feelings, how Olivia Green sing emotional roller coaster, we go up and down, up and down, up and down, and there's no balance, right? But when we stand on what's true and when we stand on the promises of God, then that's when we can ultimately feel the joy. And that's when we talk about the fruits of the spirit, right? When Paul talks about the fruits of the spirit. And it's so important that we realize that those fruits help us bear fruit in our lives, especially in a time like this.
Mm. And you know what? I think it is so vitally important to underscore the word you used around expectation,
Hmm.
because we can get to a place where we have hung all of our
Hmm.
emotional currency on misguided expectations.
Yes.
Expectations that have nothing to do with what God has called us to do
Mm.
and has nothing to do with the relationship he's calling us into.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so and how you just shared, when we aren't paying attention to the meaning we have placed on words, it also carries me into conversations where what meaning are you placing on the things that you are pursuing and you're attaching your happiness to? What is that tied to? What hole are you trying to fill because you created a meaning attached to an object?
Yes.
How,
Yes.
what kind of life lessons have you been able to walk through that has helped you better define joy in your journey?
Wow. One that knocked me off my feet completely. I remember when I was a senior healthcare executive, right? I didn't realize that I put a lot of who I was into that position. And one day that position was taken away from me. And when that position was taken away from me, my happiness, everything was gone. And I couldn't understand like what was going on with me. But I realized I put my worth into my job because it was a high status job, well paying. I was in the driver's seat. I was in the place that most people desired to be in, right?
Mhm,
And we define it as success, right?
mhm,
And when that was taken away from me, it was like my whole world crumbled.
mhm,
And I remember when I came home and I shared with my husband what happened, he was more positive than I was. And I'm
mhm.
like, no, it's more than losing a job.
Right.
I lost my status. I lost my bonus. I lost all those things that defined who I was. I lost all those things that thought brought me joy, right? But it's so funny how I remember, and I tell this story a lot because it's true. It's my story. My trials, my tribulations allowed me to be here. But I remember being in the car and the radio was playing when all my joy was gone. So I thought, and my relationship with God was disconnected, and the joy of the Lord is my strength, right?
Mhm,
So if I disconnected from God, I had no strength, but I wasn't conceptualizing it at the time. So when I was sitting in my car, I remember a song came on the radio and it said, I never seen the righteous forsaken or his seed beg for bread, right? And I didn't hear them singing it. I heard it as if a pastor was preaching it to me, and
mhm,
it just started breathing life back into me. And when I heard that song and I came into my house, I started listening to more gospel music and it started breathing life into me. And what I realized is that I put all my worth, who I was, in a status position because as a child I was taught by whoever I came in contact with what success was. And success was just snatched
mhm.
from me. And when it was snatched from me, it took all of who I thought I was. And it's another song. I love music. It's another song that was playing while I was in the midst of my trial and tribulation. And it was the song called Make Me Over Again. and and it was talking about time after time, God, I failed you. And then I just started having flashbacks, things just flashing in front of me, like how I didn't meet some of the expectations, and how like I'm sitting here as if life is over when really it just begun. And then we talk about joy. I started redirecting my energy. I started redirecting my focus, and I started really, really coming to the Lord, and renewing. He was renewing my strength, and
Yes.
he gave me a new breath, and he allowed me to see that if you rest in me,
Mhm.
you ain't got to worry about these things that you're worrying about. And I'm gonna be real honest with you. It was a hard process because I thought God had turned his back on me.
Yes.
And I felt like, why you not showing up for me? And then I realized God was like, I'm just trying to get your attention. I
Yes.
just want you to, it's like you can be a Mary or a Martha, right? And he just like, I just want you to rest at my feet.
Mhm.
And the more I rest at his feet, I had peace. And then I started realizing, I'm like, wow. And then I started seeing that what I was going through needed to happen, because to be perfectly honest with you, I wouldn't be anybody breakthrough coach or a counselor right now. I would still been in that same position. God had me on an assignment, And in order for me to get it, he had to allow some things to happen in my life that I looked at him like he was totally insane. But it allowed me to be made over again. And it allowed me to be rebuilt in a way that I was on a solid rock versus just my feelings, my emotions, and what I can access, meaning what I can buy, what I can do, how many people reported to me. That wasn't important.
Mm-hmm.
God was saying, me, I'm important. So my joy came when I started really finding delight in God.
Yes. And I also heard, now, I had to lean way back when you said you had to go back to the original moment in time. The definition of success started to be defined for you
Yes.
because you adopted somebody else's
Yep.
definition of success and
Mhm.
was trying to walk out somebody else's
Yes.
definition of success that then became a false identity of you, but
Yes.
you thought it was authentically you. And so all of our strength being put into a false identity
Yes.
that was never even meant to be your story, and
Yes.
hold on to it for dear life.
Yes.
It was somebody else's definition,
Yes.
storyline, and identity the entire time.
Yes.
What if
True.
we began to really think about, okay, Lord, this was just an assignment.
Mhm.
You have finished this assignment in my story, and based on your character, I know you will give me another one.
Yes. Yes. And it's so funny when you say based off his character, right? In
Mm-hmm.
order for us to know his character, we have to spend time with knowing what he wants from us,
Yeah.
right? And we
Yeah.
got to really understand the message that he's saying to us. And here it is, some of the scriptures that we learned in Sunday school and we used to sing. And he tells us that all things work together for our good, right?
Mhm.
But back then, if you would have, and me knowing that scripture, I felt like he mustn't mean that for me. But when he said all things work together for your good, I had to believe it.
Mhm.
And even in times when it's different now, but when I was going through it, it was hard because we got to realize that God's word is not like poetry. It's something that produce permanent change in our lives, right? And we got to know his power in his word because
Yes.
it cuts and it changes. It's sharper than a two-edged sword, right? And we got to know that it's power in it. And when you real, like I'm so serious when I say this, and even with my clients that believe I can share this with them, but we got to believe his word when he says it. Because if we don't believe his word, then what we going through right now, then we definitely should be in a panic. But when you believe his word, when he tells us he'll give us perfect peace, like
Mhm.
this is the time, all those Sunday school scriptures that we learned and we used to sing, we got to like pull them out because we hide the scripture in our heart, right? And
Mhm.
it comes out in such a time like this. And when I was going through my trials, scriptures was coming out, but I can't deny it. I was angry and disappointed with God
Mhm.
because I felt like I was entitled to some things that he
Wow,
wasn't giving me.
that word,
Yes, I felt like
that
me.
word.
I'm like, I could see if it happened to them over there, but me. And then I found out some stuff. It's like a tooth in your mouth that's all rotten. I found out some stuff about me that needed to be cleaned out. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh. Oh shucks, this is me.
This
So
is
it allowed for me to be renewed and it allowed for me to be transformed. And that doesn't mean, here it is, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect now. But what it means is that I know in my imperfections who I need to rest in. And I know in my imperfections where I can be made whole in. Whereas before I was real, I'm gonna tell you this: I was resting in myself, and I was resting in the ability of a man. Meaning that instead of resting in God, I was like, okay, the lawyers and all that, they're gonna take care of it for me.
Mhm.
Instead of me saying, let me pray, let me give it to God. My husband was just kept on saying, give it to God. I'm like, I gotta see something happen. And sometimes we feel like we need to move before God
That
versus
control.
going through the process, right? And I
Yes.
don't know if y'all ever put. I like putting stuff in the little toaster, like the waffles and stuff like that, in the little toastums. And sometimes I put stuff in the toaster, and I'm so hungry. It say it take 3 minutes, right? I'm like, I ain't got 3 minutes. I got 1 minute. I'm gonna let it pop out in 1 minute, right? And when I let it pop out in 1 minute and I go bite into it, it's ice cold. So we can't negate the process, because when we negate the process, we miss the outcome that was set for us. So it's just so important that in this place and when we're going through stuff, understand, if God says it's going to work out for our good, it's going to work out for our good. But we got to believe it, not just because I'm saying it, because this is what He says, and we got to know the word for ourselves and develop our understanding. And that's where I feel like I am now. Like, I really feel like I'm developing His understanding, which is allowing me to have joy, even when I'm going in the supermarket, all masked up, all gloved up. Somebody cough, I'm like, oh shucks, is that corona over there? But it's allowing me to just stay in peace in spite of my situation.
Yes. You know what? You said a whole word I can't even keep up with. Yes, rest in his in my imperfections. This is powerful. I love it. Yes, don't move ahead of God. Speak.
Yes.
Trust the process. So you said a whole word with that toaster. I think about how often in our lives we will take our life and put it in a toaster and not let any heat
Yeah.
actually hit our life. We want to pop it out before the heat actually takes effect and does its job to take
Wow.
from a hard place to a soft, warm, ready to be served condition.
Yes.
We want to pop it out because we are
Yes.
afraid of the heat. But the
Yes.
heat is what makes us ready.
Yes.
Stop avoiding the heat. He wants to
Oh.
get you ready.
Mm.
A whole word. I was sitting, I was like,
That's,
I'm gonna
you got me over here like
I'm
I'm afraid I'm gonna fall off the screen in a minute. I was saying this, I was like trying to stay in the screen. I'm like, yes, that's true though. That
it is. We will avoid that heat, and the heat is what's necessary.
yes.
As we think about it, yet Lori said, in his timing, patience, people. She put patience, people, exclamation mark. He's not done yet. And
No.
if we would release the false identity that we are putting all of our trust, our strength, even creating labels for
Mm.
ourselves on something that is not even meant to be
Mhm.
our finished product.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
If we
Mhm.
release that, and I love how you took us back to those early childhood scriptures that we
Mhm.
sat in Sunday school ready to get
Yes.
our star because we could just regurgitate them. What happens if we begin to integrate them?
Mm.
Stop worrying about just being able to rattle it off, but can we start
Yes.
out? That's
Yes.
the process.
Yes.
Yes. And how you just shared how, because you are in that place of
Mhm.
really meditating and
Mhm.
integrating his word,
Mhm.
changes your entire countenance
Yes.
of situations and circumstances.
Yes. Yes.
So I tell you, I always look up at the clock and I'm like, oh my
Oh,
goodness, time goes by so fast.
yes.
Dr. Tina, someone is watching and they are in an entire identity hijacking. Somebody has forfeited the truth of their identity and they are struggling to walk in joy.
Mhm.
What advice would you give them for this season in time? They're hanging on to this conversation and they need some advice on what they should be doing, thinking, acting through.
I would definitely say to you that are listening, really look at how you're defining joy, and look at if your definition of joy is lining up with some of the things that we talked about. And then I would challenge you to do a study on the word what joy is, which right now just write what you think it is, look up what the Webster dictionary say, and then ultimately go to what God say, right? And then you look at it and you see how it aligns with you. And then I also know a lot of things that still are joy, and I'm going to ask you to not let this happen to you. Stop living up to other people's expectations of you, because so often we are living up to other people's expectations, and it takes us in an area of self-destruction, right? And we're so busy trying to please man that the person that we should be trying to please is God. So if you're like, well, I don't know how to please God, spend some time in his word, because so often we may not know God's voice because we don't spend enough time with him to know when he's calling our name. So this is a time that you need to really understand how he defines. Do like a scripture research on joy, and spend time studying that, because really when you're doing this whole process, I call it selfology. You're studying yourself, you're understanding yourself, and don't shame yourself, because if we said some things that you're like, well, I don't do that, I'm not holy enough. Listen, I'm still on a journey right here, so I haven't arrived. So don't feel like anybody that's on here is better than you. We all going through something,
Yes.
and we all fall short in different things. We just not may not be on the screen telling everybody, right? So don't feel like you by yourself. But I want to challenge you to know that if you really spend time at his feet, he will clearly help us get the true meaning of joy.
I love that. So I have one question that I want us to address before you go.
Okay.
Normally we would end at that point, but I want to look at this question because I know the sister who posted it,
Mhm.
and her question is, what if the fire keeps coming? What if the fire keeps coming? And that's real, right? So even yesterday, as Courtney was sharing her testimony, and she shared how COVID was in her house, how she had to take care of her children's father, and their relationship wasn't well. She went through her entire situation, how she had everything in life had just been lined up, and all of this happened, and financially and position and what she felt was her calling, all of it she felt got knocked out of kilter. But she shifted how she took back her emotions and her fears to reshift how she was going to view her situation. Now, nothing in her situation has changed. Nothing has changed, but she changed in the middle of it.
Mhm.
And Dr. Tina, just pulling on your professional perspective, someone who feels like the fire just won't let up. What do we do in those situations? How do we survive?
So here it is. If the fire won't let up, if you were sitting on my couch and for whatever reason I feel like I could feel whatever that person is asking, like a lot of things went through my head when you were saying that, you got to go to look at what the source of the fire is. Where is that fire coming from? What is burning that fire? And when you really look at the source of that fire, you got to ask yourself, what are some things that I can do? Because all fires ain't planted by somebody else.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's some things that we have to take ownership of and switch. And then we look at what the source of the fire is. We got to look at who is the biggest firefighter in our lives. Because sometimes we want to go in there and fight that fire by ourselves and we leave God out the picture. But when you're in a fire, you identify the source. And when you identify the source and you feel like, after, how the song go, after you done all you can, you just stand. Those songs that we sing, they're not just coming from the Cracker Jack box. They're coming from like God's word. And we got to remember that. And the Bible tells us we will have trials and tribulations, right? But if we stand with him and we go allow him to be our fighter in our situation, you will see how things shift. But also, too, don't feel like you got to fight this fire by yourself. That's why it's important to have a good support system, right? You got to have an army with you. And if for some reason you got people around you that's not fighting with you, we gotta reestablish who's around us, right? And we need some people, some Bible believing people that actually will show us the way, because here it is. We're victorious, but we surrender so easily. Satan ain't got power over us, but we give him power over us because we feel we can't win. We serve, here it is. We don't serve I don't know, all those little characters that everybody goes out and see on the screens. We serve a powerful God that can get us through every situation. All we got to do is just believe. We just got to believe that God can get us through it. They said faith as small as a mustard seed, right? And the thing about a mustard seed is so small. But if you do your research on a mustard seed, it grows beyond what you can imagine. So if we allow ourselves to just continue to have that faith that small, you can watch and best believe the increase is just going to manifest itself. And I hope I answered the question. But the thing is, get to the source, get to the root of the problem. Yep.
Get to the root.
Yep.
And I think that's so, because firefighters, as soon as they go in to look at the first thing they do is they try to find what was
the cause. Mm-hmm.
Where did it start? What is the source? And yesterday, when we were talking with Courtney and she was unpacking fear, doubt, and we talked about going to the root spiritually, going to the root. What are you focusing on? The root of what you're focusing on, the root of your spiritual condition, the root of what you are saying constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Like going to the root and then doing and being willing to actually be honest and truthful and own what's at the root, as well as, I love that, getting those iron sharpen iron relationships will stand with you in the flames. But it starts with the root, because it's continuing. I have watched individuals who have gone through illness, who have gone through bankruptcy, who have gone through loss of possessions, and completely their inner man still isn't moved.
Yeah.
So it's what's at the spiritual root, the emotional root, the root of what you focus on constantly. That root issue is huge.
Yes. And it's the Bible tells us, what a man thinketh, so is he. So if we keep looking at our problem as a problem, it's going to be a problem, right? But if we look at it as we're going to get through it and we walk through the heat, because when you talked about heat earlier, everything that I know that go through some heat comes out brilliant. It comes out nice. When you think of stones and all that, they go through something. So it's like we got to make sure that we challenge our mind, because so often our mind is focused on the defeat versus the victory. And I'm not saying we ain't got 30 things. I trust and believe. I know what it feels like to have I think, at least I say it is a Job experience. And I'm sure if Job was sitting right next to me, he might say it wasn't that deep what you was going through, but it felt like it to
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
having that type of Job experience, and that's why it's important to read the Bible so you can see how God brought other people out of stuff. If he could do it for Job, I know he can do it for me. But Job kept his eyes where? On God. So
Yes.
even when we go through stuff, it's important that we keep our eyes on God, even when they filled with tears, even when it hurts, even when we think he's not there, because he said he'll never leave us or forsake us. So even when we feel like we're going through hell, we know that God is still there with me. And if I know God with me, I know I'm coming out on the other side. You got to speak life into your situation. Because if you don't speak life into your situation, you're going to feel doomed. And the enemy won. The battlefield is here. This is where it starts, right up here. And we got to condition our mind to be renewed every day, because all the devil has to do is get right in our head, and that's where the battle is.
Yes, indeed.
Mhm.
Dr. Tina, thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks for having me.
Thank you. I so appreciate you. I appreciate your spirit, your word, your advice, your wisdom, all of it. So grateful for you.
Oh.
So we end every single broadcast with the same statement: tag your it. We have shared our joy conversation, and now it is your turn. What are you going to do with it? What do you now need to meditate on? Take it out of your childhood memory and begin to actually integrate it. What do you need to look more deeply at in the root of either yourself, your family, those around you? Go after the root. How are you going to actually focus your mind more on Christ? Keep your eye on Him. What from this conversation
Mm-hmm.
are you going to show up and do and walk in joy? Fill my feed with your joy conversations, your images. Our hashtag is Take 30 FCLG. And I want to see your interpretation of joy. Dr. Tina said it starts with how you are defining joy. So show me your definition in your post. Tag me, use the hashtag. I want to see it. Now, tomorrow, I'm excited. On day 24, my girlfriend, Kenya, is going to be with us. She is a life coach, an author, a speaker, a teacher. She's had multiple opportunities to be on ABC7, Good Morning Washington. She's coming to us from Washington, D.C., and she is going to talk to us about get joy from your God-given treasure.
Amen.
So that's our conversation for tomorrow. Make sure you log in 5 o'clock tomorrow for the next joy conversation. Thank you again, Dr. Tina.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I loved it.
Absolutely, absolutely our pleasure. Thank you, everybody. We love you. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.